The truth about casinos and the psychology of gamblers through each stage. I mention gambling, and people often insist it should be treated strictly as a form of entertainment rather than a legitimate way to make money or a quick route to overnight success. Our story begins with the advice of a legendary figure in the gambling industry, Mr. Stanley Ho, also known as the King of Gambling in Macau. He was a billionaire with enormous influence, the founder and chairman of SJM Holdings, which owns nearly 20 casinos in Macau. Although he had extraordinary skills in investing and running casinos, what most impressed people was his constant emphasis on the devastating impacts of gambling. He never allowed himself to gamble, nor did he permit his family to partake in high-stakes bets. His guiding principle, "If you don't gamble, you win," was repeated time and again, reflecting his belief that gambling offers no sustainable wealth to anyone. In reality, as Stanley Ho himself pointed out, the odds are perpetually in the house's favor because the casino takes a cut of every hand. Even if you enjoy a short-term win, persistent play puts you at risk of losing it all. According to him, certain games that seem enticing, such as Bankrupt, also involve a house commission of about 5% per round. Even if you were to theoretically break even over 40 rounds, you'd still pay a considerable sum in commission. So, the more you play, the less likely you are to maintain a profit, as the advantage steadily tilts toward the house. The casino holds statistical control and employs a wide range of strategies, both in service and psychology, to keep players hooked. Macau, Las Vegas, or any other gambling hub operate on the same premise. As long as you keep coming back to play, eventually you will lose. During interviews, Stanley Ho repeatedly framed gambling as pure entertainment. But the grim reality shows that many remain blind to gambling's true nature, seduced by glitzy marketing or their own confidence in tricking luck. The harsh truth is that casinos are never afraid of the occasional big winner. What they really fear is when players do not come at all. After all, if you return often, it is simply a matter of time before you lose. That explains why casinos sometimes seem to give out early wins to excite players, feeding the illusion that hitting it big is effortless. In fact, it's carefully orchestrated, so that extended play gradually drains the gambler's bankroll. Beyond monetary losses, gambling is a double-edged sword that rattles a player's mental state. Once caught up in the desire to reclaim losses, to avenge luck, or to chase the next big win, gamblers often lose their judgment. The deeper they sink, the tougher it is to walk away. Countless cautionary tales feature individuals ruined by gambling, losing homes, families, and reputations. Yet, very few people wake up to reality before it's too late. This narrative will illuminate various facets of the gambling trap, from the meteoric rise and fall of someone like Lemmin, who started out with a streak of lucky wins before going broke, to wealthy high rollers who still crumble under their obsession with turning the tables. The twists and turns of these accounts collectively prove that once entrapped by gambling, no one walks away truly unscathed. A heartbreaking example of gambling's destructive power is the story of Lemmin. He was a man who initially held a secure job at a major construction company, earning enough to live comfortably and enjoying a family life free of serious troubles. However, in 2011, he happened upon the world of soccer betting, a seemingly harmless pastime at first. In his very first wager, Lemmin put down 10 million VND, roughly several $100s, and, against all odds, won 80 million VND. Gaining that kind of return from a small stake overnight planted in him a dangerously seductive idea. Why toil for a year if I can reap far more in just one evening of betting? From that pivotal moment, he began his hazardous journey. Within 3 months of consistent betting, Lemmin accumulated winnings of over 1 billion VND in total, tens of thousands of dollars, starting from less than 200 million VND, under $10,000. At this stage, he harbored the illusion that he had an uncanny knack for guessing match outcomes, or at least an extraordinary lucky streak. He might also have deluded himself into thinking that laboring day by day was worthless compared to quick profits in online gambling. As a result, he resigned from his stable job to devote all his time and resources to soccer betting, a decision that propelled him down a path toward financial disaster. The previously won money became fuel for placing riskier bets, chasing even bigger jackpots. The real test came when he finally encountered losing streaks. In fewer than 3 months after amassing over 1 billion VND, Lemmin lost everything. He sought to recover what he had lost. But paradoxically, each loss only inflamed his impatience, fueling reckless bets to reclaim losses. Consequently, he sank into substantial debt. Among these losses were more than 2 billion VND borrowed from his parents and banks, plus additional debts from loan sharks charging astronomically high interest rates. Within half a year, the interest he owed spiraled out of control, propelling him into a cycle of desperate borrowing that led nowhere but further down. All this devastation undermined Lemmin's belief in honest work. Once a motivated employee, he drifted into a hopeless routine of doing nothing, refusing job offers even as day-to-day expenses piled up. The crux of the problem was that gambling had ingrained in him the misguided notion, "I just need one more lucky bet to recoup everything." When reality struck back with defeat after defeat, he completely lost morale, and his financial and emotional well-being suffered catastrophically. Ultimately, Lemmin sold the house his parents helped him purchase, retreating into a hotel room where he disconnected from family and friends, sinking deeper into hopelessness. In his mind, as long as there was even a faint chance of winning, he could not stop gambling. And once that last hope flickered, the despair that replaced it was overwhelming. Such was only the beginning of the painful fallout that his family endured. The house, once a symbol of stability and comfort, was gone. He was unable to look his loved ones in the eye, feeling guilt-ridden and anxious all the time. This outcome represents the tragic inevitability that so many gamblers face, following the same pattern of initial small wins leading to enormous losses and irreversible regrets. Following the house sale that left him with only around 200 million VND, Lemmin was on the brink of giving up altogether. He could no longer manage his debts nor face the shame of what he had done. Retreating to a hotel, he switched off his phone and isolated himself. Instead of seeking a path to regroup and start over, he went right back to online betting with that last remaining sum. In his mind, he needed just 2 billion VND in winnings to buy a modest apartment and start life anew. Yet gambling rarely hands out second chances to someone on a losing spree. Within a short span, half of his remaining balance was gone. The psychological weight of his indebtedness, combined with profound guilt, overwhelmed him to the point where he seriously contemplated ending his own life. He left behind a letter for his family, transferring the little money he had left to his mother's account, pleading for their forgiveness and hoping they would not mourn him too deeply. With trembling resolve, he climbed to the rooftop of the hotel, intending to jump. By a stroke of fate, his parents tracked down his location in time, thanks to his room registration, and managed to intervene before it was too late. Escorted home, he spent 2 entire months in bed, refusing to speak or engage with anyone. His parents were too heartbroken to reprimand him, offering instead a quiet space for him to recover, though the family's finances had been severely damaged by his reckless decisions. During that period, property prices in the area where Lemmin once owned a house surged drastically. Selling off the house under duress meant his family missed out on gains that would have significantly improved their security. Now, every day was clouded by regret. Had he only listened sooner to warnings about gambling, the dire situation might have been avoided. Yet by then, it was far too late. Exhausted emotionally, Lemmin resisted any attempt to find employment, turning down job offers despite an impressive resume. The financial burden, including daily living expenses, fell entirely on his parents' shoulders. His wife, who had tried in vain to steer him away from gambling, eventually sought a divorce when it became clear he could not be dissuaded. Friends also drifted away, some out of frustration with his constant borrowing, others because his persistent anxiety made him difficult to be around. Finally, his father made a heartfelt appeal. "Son, move back to the city. Get some job, even if it's menial. That's better than hiding away forever." Moved by his parents' unwavering support, Lemmin conceded. They pledged to use their pension and rental income to help him buy a small apartment. Realizing he could not trust himself with money anymore, he handed all his wages to his mother each month, keeping only enough for daily essentials. He canceled every credit card and loan facility to avoid future temptations. 14 months later, he had managed to stay away from gambling, though he was still rebuilding his life. His savings were modest, and his job was ordinary, But at least he no longer woke up every morning in fear. He could now look his parents in the eye, buy them small gifts, and feel confidence rekindle, hoping to atone, bit by bit, for the damage wrought by his addiction. Lamin's ordeal is one personal testament to how brutally gambling can destroy someone. But my older brother, a man who spent years working in the Macau casino industry, shared countless more tales revealing the same harsh truth. Through his experiences, he recognized that gambling preys on a universal vulnerability: human greed. Everyone wants a bit more money, more love, more success, more perfection. Casinos know this, and they exploit it by providing a glamorized environment where the possibility of striking it rich seems tantalizingly close. In Macau, genuine big spenders include entrepreneurs, real estate magnates, heirs to massive fortunes, and sometimes powerful officials looking for escapism. They are welcomed with lavish gestures, for these high rollers are the lifeblood of a casino's profits. My brother described a particular young heir of about 30 who visited Macau once a month with 5 to 10 billion VND in hand, equivalent to hundreds of thousands of dollars. He would begin placing 1-to-1, 5 billion VND per bet, and if Lady Luck graced him, he might escalate to 3 billion. Should he drop to his last few billion, he would often bet it all within 20 minutes of play. Whether he went home a winner or a loser did not seem to matter to him. It was the adrenaline rush, the utter thrill of risking everything, that hooked him. But casinos have no fear of players like him because, although he might land multiple wins, a single massive loss can wipe out all previous gains and his principal as well. Another breed of gambler takes a more measured approach: entrepreneurs who try to strategize. My brother recalled a rural businessman, around 50 years old, who brought 7 billion VND per trip. Initially, the man would only wager small amounts, tens of millions each turn, and often ended up winning a few hundred million to a few billion. Occasionally, he even strung together multiple winning sessions without significant losses. That taste of success nurtured his fantasy of infinite control. However, once he dropped more than 200 million, he panicked, drastically raising his bets to recover quickly. Watching him unravel, my brother saw the once composed businessman become a reckless gambler, flinging around hundreds of millions each round. Eventually, he lost all 7 billion in a single week, then mortgaged personal assets, losing tens of billions more. The annual profits of his company couldn't come close to covering such staggering losses. In each scenario, the core element is the same: people convinced they can outsmart the game or master their luck. Yet these illusions shatter under the casino's steady advantage. The real tragedy goes beyond money. Gambling erodes the sense of value and accomplishment one gains from honest work. When people see how easy a windfall can appear, they undermine their motivation for long-term, legitimate efforts. This negligence can cascade into neglecting businesses, families, or even personal well-being, leading individuals to pour more resources and energy into an enterprise where the odds are mathematically stacked against them. Not everyone gambles purely out of financial greed. Some appear driven by emptiness or a wish to fill a void in their lives. My brother described 2 major clients, Mr. C and Mr. D, each boasting hundreds of millions of dollars in personal assets. Rather than channeling their resources into travel, philanthropy, or constructive ventures, they spent over 20 days a month glued to slot machines or baccarat tables. Mr. C's fixation was so intense that he could park himself before a slot machine for 12 hours straight, even eating meals in front of it. Mr. D similarly camped out at baccarat tables from dawn till dusk, seemingly unruffled whether he won or lost. One time, Mr. C lamented, "These slot machines are bottomless pits," prompting Mr. D to ask why he kept playing if he felt that way. Mr. C simply shrugged, "I'm not really interested in anything else." It's a startling revelation that, for certain wealthy individuals, gambling serves as a means to combat boredom or restlessness. Having tasted lavish pleasures like supercars, yachts, and exclusive real estate, they find everything ordinary. Charity might not appeal to them, and they feel no drive to invest in meaningful projects. Gambling then becomes a perverse hobby, offering momentary spikes of excitement. Over time, the inevitable big losses creep in. Observers may question why they persist. Yet once you realize that, for them, money has become little more than numbers on a screen, it starts to make warped sense. The final outcome is almost always more debt and bigger disappointments, proof that money alone does not immunize one from addiction's destructive nature. Macau, a neon-lit paradise of towering buildings and endless high-end boutiques, teems with diversions that enthrall visitors. Casinos actively lure customers by promising exclusive perks, membership cards that can be exchanged for gifts, free hotel rooms, limousine service, even helicopter rides, all for the chance to see you play one more session. In certain VIP lounges run by junket operators, an entire sub-industry within Macau, high rollers can obtain credit lines on the spot, paying back only after settling at the end of their trip. Some are invited to try phone betting if they find a physical visit inconvenient. They install an app, watch the live updates of every dealt card, and announce their bets in real time. The entire setup is designed so that you never have to stop gambling. If you don't fancy the table stakes in the main hall, there are always side rooms with far larger limits. On top of gambling, Macau's luxurious nightclubs, Michelin-starred restaurants, and high-fashion retail shops beckon to those looking for spectacle and indulgence. Even small details, like the prevalence of mainland Chinese cuisine over local Macanese or Hong Kong delicacies, cater to the massive influx of gamblers from the mainland. And unlike Hong Kong's somewhat aloof stance toward mainland visitors, Macau is eager to flatter those with money, greeting them as honored guests. Beneath this facade of politeness, however, it's clear that what truly matters in Macau is your bankroll. Some call Macau a city of glitz and glamour, but it is also a stark testament to the raw power of money, where everything bows to those who can afford to lose. Why then do so many gamblers, fully aware of the casino's advantage, still chase the next bet? The simplest explanation is that people believe in luck, or, more precisely, in their ability to snag one decisive win that erases all prior losses. The phrase, "as long as you can still breathe, you can still recover," might seem humorous, but it encapsulates the irrational hope that keeps gamblers tethered to the table. Human beings have a deep-seated aversion to admitting defeat. They would rather gamble until the last chip is gone than walk away as a loser. This underlying psychological pattern can be broken down into 4 stages: the cautious stage, the downfall stage, the compensation stage, and the wipeout stage. At the start, people tread carefully, making small bets and telling themselves they can walk away anytime. A big win, like 100 million VND, may occur at some lucky moment, fueling an inflated sense of possibility. The gambler starts thinking, "I can do this every time." Thus, when they lose a bit, they shrug it off, relying on the memory of that previous big win to keep them playing in search of another. In the downfall stage, the gambler encounters a significant loss that shakes their confidence. Yet, because they once recovered from a similar loss, they're convinced they can replicate that success. Memories of miraculous comebacks or dramatic wins cloud their judgment, leading them to think that if they simply keep going, their luck will turn around once again. However, the losing streak often extends longer than they anticipate, driving them into deeper chaos. Then follows the compensation stage, when they commit to recovering the total sum lost by dividing that target across multiple sessions. Rather than aiming for one enormous haul, they think in terms of incremental steps, like, if I can just win 1 or 2 billion VND each night, I'll fix everything. But such thinking only chains them tighter to the gambling cycle. Each fresh defeat compels them to redouble their efforts. The final stage, wipeout, arrives when resources are utterly depleted. Having leveraged all assets, borrowed from every source, and perhaps even resorted to dishonest tactics, the gambler now faces overwhelming debt and psychological torment. Some make reckless attempts to run from creditors, while others spiral into despair or severe depression, contemplating desperate actions. Yet for those who keep chasing, the impetus remains that single delusional chance to reverse it all in one stroke. Thus, gambling doesn't merely strip away finances, it ravages dignity, relationships, and moral compasses. Some people, drowning in debt, deceive friends and family, or perpetrate fraud to finance another round of bets. They still fantasize, "If I can just win big this once, I'll settle all my debts." But that magical moment never arrives, and the cycle grows more vicious. Studies reveal that relapse rates for gambling addiction run disturbingly high, rivaling alcohol or narcotics dependency. Gambling targets the same pleasure-reward circuits in the brain. Losing ignites a craving to recoup, while winning stimulates euphoria that triggers the urge to keep playing. The net result is captivity, no matter the outcome of each bet. Many people mistakenly believe that only illegal gambling dens use outright cheating. In truth, legitimate casinos in Las Vegas or Macau seldom need to rig games through small-time trickery. They rely on the mathematical edge embedded in each game. This advantage, given enough time, will statistically favor the house over the player. Take Baccarat as an example. Some treat it like a puzzle that can be solved with patterns, data charts, or pair bets, offering high payoffs. Ultimately, these so-called systems merely feed the gambler's illusion of control, as if they're on the cusp of a winning streak that will recoup all losses. No matter how cleverly one strategizes, probability remains on the casino's side. Even if you manage a windfall, continued play usually results in returning it. Casinos are adept at nurturing a player's sense of potential recovery, hosting them in plush VIP suites, granting free fine dining, and pampering them. Indeed, some jokes say, the only thing a casino fears is you not coming back. As long as you remain in the loop, they are confident the house edge will eventually wear you down. The stories of high-rolling heirs, successful business owners, or everyday folks like Lamin all share a common thread. Once that comeback mindset takes hold, you dig your own grave deeper. If we look deeper, we see gambling not only crushes finances, but also shatters self-esteem, ethics, and human connections. Desperate gamblers, drowning in debt, often lie, cheat, or steal to bankroll another chance. It stems from the delusional conviction that one more big win can fix everything. But that elusive final triumph is typically out of reach, and each failure intensifies the gambler's downward spiral. Moreover, quitting gambling is notoriously challenging. Like addictive substances, gambling stimulates potent psychological rewards. You chase the adrenaline high of winning or the longing to recover from losing, both fueling an endless cycle. The gambler is tethered to the table, whether winning or losing. Hence, the pithy statement, "If you don't gamble, you win," resonates so strongly. Declining to join the game is the surest safeguard against this grim path. Stanley Ho, who literally built an empire on gambling, often warned how precarious it is to treat betting as anything beyond casual entertainment, if even that. Indeed, his own family was barred from touching casino tables, given his intimate knowledge of the industry's darker underbelly. One might ask, is it really that easy to fall into a ruinous trap? Observing examples like Lamin or hearing about wealthy tycoons burning through fortunes suggests yes, it can happen to anyone. Gambling is a calculated system that exploits the universal human desire to conquer odds and achieve instant success. Even the smartest or wealthiest may succumb if they cannot resist the allure. Social damage emerges. Once a family's breadwinner loses everything, that loss ripples into joblessness, marital breakdowns, or children deprived of education. Ultimately, the industry thrives because it caters to fundamental human weaknesses, packaging them in glitz, glamour, and the faint promise of something for nothing. Let's also emphasize that not everyone who gambles began as naive or immoral. Often they start innocently enough, dabbling in minor bets just for fun or out of curiosity about how lucky they might be. Then, a single substantial win might blindside them, or seeing someone else strike a jackpot can ignite a burning desire to try their own luck. Soon enough, they encounter their first losses, fueling resentment and a vow to beat the odds. They keep telling themselves, "No way I can stay this unlucky," or "I'm a smart predictor, it's just a bad run," which leads to the infamous phenomenon of chasing losses. Over time, the mounting debt and desperation push them beyond rational boundaries, driving them to gamble larger sums or take out loans at staggering interest rates. If illegal gambling dens or underground casinos are thrown into the mix, the dangers multiply. There, one might be forced to keep playing until they have been fleeced of every penny, or coerced into signing inflated IOUs under threat of violence. Some horror stories feature players held captive for days or weeks, But whether legitimate or illicit, the endgame doesn't differ much. Consistent play almost guarantees you'll lose more than you win. Morally and financially, you risk hitting rock bottom. For relatives and friends of a gambler, the experience is equally agonizing. They can't understand how their once level-headed loved one could become so consumed, or why stern advice and warnings fall on deaf ears. Knowledge of the psychological processes involved helps explain it. Players who've tasted big wins cling to the memory, convinced they can recreate that surge of good fortune. Their pride prevents them from admitting they are losers, so they're compelled to keep trying. Unfortunately, life isn't a feel-good movie with a scripted heroic comeback. Casinos aren't philanthropic institutions, and Lady Luck rarely intervenes in reality. The more the gambler struggles to flip the script, the deeper they sink, akin to quicksand. Escaping that trap demands enormous resolve. Truly quitting gambling is often harder than giving up alcohol because the addiction is so deeply psychological. Medical interventions for substance abuse might alleviate withdrawal symptoms, but gambling addiction burrows into an individual's emotional and behavioral patterns. People like Lamin only manage to steer clear by severing all financial means, handing any money over to family, and canceling every credit card. Some even relocate to new cities just to distance themselves from the environment that fosters their addiction. This kind of self-imposed barrier can take months or years to show results, and relapses remain a constant threat. At any moment, a flash of overconfidence or a quick glimpse of an online betting advertisement could lure them back. That vulnerability exemplifies why the path to true recovery is so arduous, requiring robust support systems and vigilance. From these intertwined stories, Stanley Ho, who warns us not to gamble if we want to win. Lamin, who nearly lost everything including his own life, and the high rollers or jaded wealthy individuals who have squandered fortunes, we glean one irrefutable lesson. Gambling rarely remains just a harmless hobby. Some highly disciplined players may set strict monetary and time limits, treating it like a ticket to an amusement park. Yet once those boundaries blur, gambling morphs into a treacherous slope. Regardless of one's cunning or wealth, prolonged immersion in gambling typically has two outcomes: financial devastation or an endless cycle of mental anguish, often culminating in family breakdowns. In today's world, online gambling platforms amplify the temptation even more. Anyone can log in from their phone, anytime, anywhere, to place bets instantly. This convenience intensifies the addiction's danger, often surpassing traditional gambling houses because it's omnipresent and easily hidden. Many gamblers sink into debts so deep that their families remain clueless until the situation is dire. The cautionary takeaway is to internalize the principle, if you don't gamble, you win. There's no magical formula, strategy guide, or expert system that can outmaneuver the permanent house edge. For those already entangled, look to Lamin's example of painstaking recovery. The key is to shatter the illusion of one big score that'll undo everything. If you still have any resources left, preserve them instead of risking them in a final, desperate attempt. Partial loss beats total ruin. Seek assistance from loved ones, friends, or professional counselors. Accept your mistakes, relinquish pride, and consider safeguards like canceling credit lines, blocking gambling sites, or even moving away from triggers. Addiction is cunning. If you leave any door cracked open, it can slither back in. Do note that gambling does not discriminate based on intelligence or socioeconomic status. As my brother witnessed firsthand, respected executives and trust fund heirs, people who seem to hold every advantage, can be undone by reckless wagers. Countless families endure tragic endings. The father or mother, once the stable provider, drains every resource. That blow has a domino effect, spawning financial and emotional turmoil for everyone connected to them. Reflecting on Stanley Ho's insistence that even his closest kin must refrain from playing at the tables he oversees, one sees the grim reality. The house controls the deck and reaps steady profits. Patrons, however, inevitably face losing odds, paying dearly for fleeting thrills. When all is said and done, the most constructive path involves channeling your efforts into legitimate pursuits, productive careers, or genuine passions. Avoid letting curiosity or a single lucky night's high lure you down the road to emptiness. Even if you are flush with cash, gambling remains a razor-sharp weapon capable of severing everything you have worked for. As the expression goes, as long as you can still breathe, you can still recover. But if that recovery plan centers on gambling, you risk the nightmare of losing more than you can afford. Is it worth staking your future on a game systematically rigged against you? The clear-sighted choice is to walk away before the stakes become too high.